My sister called me crying, they laughed at me in front of everyone. I let her stay in my guest room. A week later, I found her wearing my work badge. She whispered, "They think I'm you." Then my boss called me into his office. I'm Vanessa, 42, single, and living a relatively quiet life in Silver Spring, Maryland. I work as a senior project manager at a government consulting firm. I've always considered myself the stable one in the family, not flashy, not particularly adventurous but dependable. Predictable. Quiet. My younger sister Mallory, 36, is the opposite. Always chasing something new. Always looking for a reinvention, new jobs, new passions, new cities. For years, I've watched her tumble through phases like a leaf in the wind. We weren't close growing up, and adulthood only widened that gap. But she's my sister. You don't stop being someone's sister just because you stopped understanding them. We hadn't spoken for almost 8 months when she called me one Tuesday evening around 9 p.m. I was halfway through my nightly cup of chamomile tea when her name popped up on my phone. I almost didn't answer. But something in me said pick up. She was crying. Not dramatic tears, not the kind that came from frustration or rage, but the soft, broken kind. She said she'd tried to give a motivational talk at a local business meetup. Her big comeback. But she froze mid-sentence. Lost the thread. Then, some people, former colleagues, it turns out, laughed. They actually laughed, Ness. I couldn't even get the words out. I didn't know what to say, so I just told her to come over. She didn't have to go into detail. She needed a safe place. I had a guest room. It was that simple. Mallory arrived the next morning. She was pale, gaunt almost, dressed in sweatpants and a hoodie that had clearly seen better days. She looked older than I remembered. Not in the way time ages you, but in the way stress drains something essential from your face. She didn't unpack much, just a duffel bag and a tote stuffed with papers. I didn't push her to talk. I've learned over the years that Mallory doesn't respond well to probing questions. She spent most of that first day curled up on the couch, watching TV in silence, occasionally muttering about how embarrassing it all was. I just kept the house quiet and made her tea. The next few days followed a strange pattern. Mallory slept in late, sometimes until noon. I'd leave early for work, come home around 6, and she'd be sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through her old notebooks or scrolling endlessly through her phone. We didn't talk much. She kept saying she needed time to regroup. I believed her. On the 7th day, I came home from work earlier than usual. It was a Friday, and traffic was light. I pulled into the driveway around 3:45 p.m., humming along to some old Billy Joel on the radio, mentally planning a quiet weekend. I walked through the door and dropped my bag on the side table. I heard footsteps upstairs. Mallory was supposed to be out for a walk. She mentioned she might go to the library. That's when I saw her coming down the stairs. She was wearing my navy blue blazer. My work slacks. Even the sensible black flats I usually reserve for long days on my feet. My hairbrush and makeup, normally untouched, were clearly used. In her hand? My company badge. We locked eyes, both frozen for a second too long. She looked caught. Embarrassed. Like a child caught sneaking candy. "They think I'm you," she said softly. Almost like she was admitting something sacred. I blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" I walked into your office building this morning," she said, stumbling over the words. "I used your badge. Just to walk around. Nobody stopped me. The guard at the front smiled and waved. I even took the elevator up to the 12th floor. What?" I asked, louder now. "You what?" She kept going, like she hadn't even heard me. It felt different. Like I mattered. People looked at me like I belonged there. I didn't yell. I couldn't. I was too stunned. I told her to take the badge off and go back to the guest room. I said we'd talk later. She obeyed without a word. For once, she didn't argue. That night, I lay awake thinking about what she'd done. I kept replaying it in my head, her voice, that look in her eyes. She wasn't trying to steal. She wasn't even pretending maliciously. It was something else. Desperation? Longing? I couldn't place it. But I knew one thing for sure: it couldn't happen again. I woke up early the next morning, intending to have a serious talk with her. But before I could, my phone buzzed. An email. From HR. They wanted to meet with me that afternoon. Regarding recent behavior and conduct. The email from HR was short and professional, but it hit me like a punch to the chest. Subject: immediate meeting request, 2:30 p.m. today. Vanessa, please make yourself available for a brief in-person meeting with Director Blake regarding reports from this week. Let us know if the time poses any conflicts. No explanation. No details. Just the kind of vague, ominous message that turns your stomach into knots. I got to the office early and sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands clenched around the steering wheel. Every bad scenario ran through my mind: layoffs, accusations, disciplinary action. I've never even been late in 15 years. The worst I've done is forget to reply all in an email chain. I was trying to talk myself down from the ledge of anxiety, but my thoughts kept circling back to Mallory. To her walking into my building. Wearing my face, my clothes, my name. My legs were stiff when I finally walked in. Director Blake's office was on the top floor, past the glass doors where the real decision-makers sat. I'd only been summoned there once before, when I got promoted 5 years ago. The secretary barely made eye contact when she waved me in. Blake stood when I entered. He was polite, formal, too formal, like he'd rehearsed whatever he was about to say. His usual calm demeanor had a tight edge to it. Vanessa, please sit. I sat, hands folded on my lap like a schoolgirl waiting for punishment. He looked directly at me, but his expression was unreadable. We've received several reports over the last few days. Concerns. Observations from colleagues who've worked closely with you. Okay. I said slowly. Some said you seemed disoriented. You didn't remember names or project specifics. One of your team leads said you walked right past him on Tuesday like you didn't know who he was. There were questions raised about your state of mind. My face must have gone white. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Swallowed. Sir, I don't know what to say. I haven't acted strangely at all. I've been here, working, every day. He studied me. Security confirmed your badge was used multiple times this week. But the times are strange. Early mornings. Odd gaps. And there's no security camera coverage in the front lobby. That's not unusual, but it makes this difficult to verify. Wait, so you're saying you don't think it was me? I'm saying, he said, leaning forward, that if it wasn't you, that raises a different set of concerns. I could feel my skin prickling. A wave of cold sweat down my back. I told him. I explained the situation about Mallory, her mental state, the humiliating experience she'd just gone through, the guest room, the clothes. I left nothing out, except for how furious and embarrassed I really felt. He listened. He didn't interrupt. And when I finished, he didn't laugh or dismiss me. But he did let out a long sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose. This is, well, I won't lie, Vanessa. It's serious. I didn't know she was actually going in. I thought she'd walked around the lobby one time. I told her not to do it again. I didn't know she had. He nodded. We're not going to take any formal action yet. But you'll be placed on a lower visibility rotation for a few weeks. Just until things settle. You understand how this affects our trust, right? I do, I said quietly. I left his office feeling numb. The elevator ride down was silent, sterile. The halls I'd walked 1,000 times felt foreign, like I didn't belong. And maybe, for a few days this week, I didn't. Maybe someone else had taken my place. When I got home that night, the house was still. Mallory wasn't in the guest room. Her suitcase was gone. The bed was made. The room didn't look like anyone had ever stayed there. There was no note, no text. She was just gone. I checked the bathroom. My makeup was untouched. The hairbrush was back in its usual drawer. My work clothes were neatly hung in the closet, freshly steamed. It was like she'd tried to erase herself from the space entirely. The only thing out of place was a single coffee mug left by the sink, the one she always used in the mornings. A small, floral cup with a chip on the rim. I sat on the couch for hours that night, trying to make sense of it all. She hadn't done it out of malice. I truly believe that. Mallory didn't have the cunning for manipulation. She had the fragility of someone who didn't know where she belonged anymore. But still, she'd violated something. Crossed a boundary I didn't even know existed. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was deeply sad. For her. For me. For what we could have been as sisters, and what we might never be now. The next morning, I called her. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No reply. I even checked social media, but her accounts had been deactivated. I found one old email and tried that too, but nothing bounced back. Nothing came through either. She was gone. The days that followed were filled with a kind of strange silence. Not just in the house, but inside me. Like someone had hit mute on the parts of me that used to run loud: my routine, my thoughts, my certainty. I was still waking up at 6 a.m., still driving to the office in the same car, still checking my inbox like clockwork. But I wasn't really in any of it. Everything felt out of sync. Or maybe I did. I kept wondering, how many people at work knew what had happened? Did they whisper in the break room? Did they think I had some kind of breakdown and invented a sister to cover for it? No one said anything directly, but people started treating me like I was made of glass. My team lead, Armin, kept asking me if I needed help on even the smallest tasks. Shelley from the HR department passed me in the hall one day and gave me this overly sympathetic smile, like she wanted to pat me on the back but didn't quite know how. I didn't fight it. I let them handle me. I think the worst part was walking into spaces that Mallory had been in, places I didn't even realize she'd touched, and wondering if people had seen her or me. She had walked my path, sat in the same chairs, worn my name on a badge, and smiled like she belonged. And no one noticed. One night, about a week after she left, I was doing laundry and found a receipt tucked into the pocket of my navy blazer. Dated 3 days before she disappeared. It was from a coffee shop near my building, Misha's, a little place I usually avoid because they overcharge and underpour. She'd bought a cappuccino and a blueberry scone. Paid in cash. It didn't seem like much, but I stared at that slip of paper like it was a map. She'd walked the same street I walk every day. She'd walked as me. What did she say if someone greeted her? Did she use my name? Did she fake small talk? I imagined her nodding, smiling, her voice mimicking mine, maybe adding a laugh where I normally wouldn't. It was like finding someone had lived inside your home without permission, rearranged the furniture just slightly, then disappeared without a trace. 2 more weeks passed with no word. And then, on a random Tuesday, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A physical, handwritten letter. The kind no one sends anymore. Ness, I'm sorry. I know I crossed a line I can't uncross. I don't even know what to say, except that I wanted to feel safe for a little while. And I thought if I could step into your world, just briefly, I'd find the part of myself I keep losing. I never meant to make trouble for you. I wasn't trying to steal your life. I just didn't know how to live mine anymore. I'm going to get help. Real help this time. I'll reach out when I can. Please don't hate me. Love, Mallory. There was no return address. Just a postmark from Charlottesville, Virginia. I read it 4 times that night, sitting on the edge of my bed. The handwriting looked rushed, shaky. Like someone had written it in a hurry, or with trembling hands. I felt something shift in my chest, something I didn't want to name. Because the truth was, part of me did hate her. Not all of me. Not even most of me. But a small, raw part. The part that had spent the last few weeks watching my credibility at work chip away. The part that had started to second-guess myself every time someone looked at me sideways. The part that kept wondering how easily my life could be mistaken for someone else's costume. Still, it was a letter. It was something. And that had to count for more than silence. But after that, there was nothing. No second letter. No phone call. No sign of her at all. I started trying to move forward. Tried. I even reached out to a therapist, something I hadn't done in years. She was a calm woman named Doreen, who listened without judgment and gave me space to say things I didn't even know I was carrying. I don't know if I was angry because she impersonated me, I told her during one session. Or because it worked. Because no one noticed. She nodded. That's a painful truth to sit with. Feeling invisible in your own life. It's not like my life is amazing. It's just, mine. Doreen didn't respond right away. She let the silence stretch. Eventually, she said, sometimes it's not about having an amazing life. Sometimes it's just about having a stable one. And to someone on the edge, even that can look like heaven. That hit me harder than I expected. It made me think about all the times Mallory had failed jobs, relationships, cities, phases, and how I had always watched from a distance. Safe, judgmental, and detached. I told myself I was protecting my peace. But maybe I was also protecting myself from the guilt of not being able to save her. One night, I got bold and searched her name online again. This time, something came up. A GoFundMe. Created anonymously, but with her full name in the title. Help Mallory get back on her feet. The photo was one I recognized cropped from our family picnic 8 years ago. She'd cut me out. The fundraiser wasn't gaining traction. 2 donations. One for $25, one for $10. There was a short blurb, Mallory is a passionate, creative soul who's had a rough year. She's in transition and working toward rebuilding her life after a personal crisis. Every bit helps. She has dreams of starting her own business and needs support to get on the right track. I didn't know whether to be touched or horrified. It was so Mallory. Half hopeful, half untethered. No specifics. Just an ask for grace. I closed the tab without donating. I couldn't decide if that made me a bad person or a boundary-honoring one. And that's where things have stayed, in the in-between. The silence. The unresolved. A month passed. Then another. The seasons were beginning to shift, as they always did in Maryland reluctantly, without grace. The summer heat gave way to damp air, and leaves began to clog the gutters. I caught myself thinking, more than once, about what Mallory would have said about the changing weather. She hated fall. Said it felt like everything was dying slowly and no one had the guts to call it what it was. The letter, the GoFundMe both began to feel like distant ripples in a much larger pond. My therapist encouraged me to rebuild my center, whatever that meant. I tried. I started journaling. I bought myself a new coat, just to mark some kind of change. I even reconnected with a couple of old friends for coffee. I was trying. But something still wasn't settling. And then the emails started. The first one came on a Thursday morning at 6:12 a.m., sent to my work inbox. Subject, no subject, from unknownsender194@protonmail.com message. She looked confident walking through the front doors. Like she belonged. No one even questioned it. I stared at it for a full minute, then read it again. I checked the email headers, though I barely understood what I was looking at. It had been sent through an encrypted, anonymous account. No name. No signature. I didn't tell anyone. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe someone had overheard my HR meeting. Office gossip, or worse, some bored IT guy who'd pieced things together and decided to toy with me. It's not like government contractors are a hotbed of emotional maturity. I deleted the email and moved on. The second message came the following Monday. Subject: missing pieces message. People don't just disappear. They leave echoes. You just haven't noticed where. I felt that one in my chest. This wasn't office gossip. It was personal. Too personal. Still, I said nothing. Reporting it meant opening the door to the whole situation again, reliving it, explaining it, risking my credibility further. I was only just starting to get back into the groove at work. I couldn't afford more questions. So I quietly set up a filter to move all messages from that sender to a hidden folder. I told myself if I didn't see them, they didn't matter. But of course, I did check the folder. Every single day. A third message arrived 2 weeks later. This one included an attachment, a cropped photo of a woman, taken from behind, entering the coffee shop near my office. Same shoulder-length dark hair. Same navy blazer. I couldn't tell if it was me or Mallory. That's what unnerved me. The timestamp on the photo was dated 3 days earlier. I'd been working from home that day. I called Doreen, my therapist, that night. I didn't share the email explicitly, but I hinted. Let's say someone from your past is trying to get your attention, I said. Not necessarily in a threatening way. Just poking the edges of your life. Doreen paused. What's the purpose of the poking? I sighed. I don't know. Maybe they want me to notice something. Or remember. Do you think you owe them something? That one landed harder than I expected. I didn't answer right away. Because, deep down, I wasn't sure. I started walking to work again. Not every day, but often enough to be noticed. Part of me wanted to send a message: I'm here. I'm watching. I'm not the kind of person who just unravels quietly. I'd survived Mallory's visit. I'd survived the scrutiny. I wasn't going to be shadowed by this strange presence, whoever it was. But every time I passed the coffee shop window, I slowed down. Scanned the tables. Checked the corners. Once, I thought I saw her. Not Mallory, but someone with her build, same coloring, hunched over a laptop. I stepped inside. The woman looked up. Not her. She didn't even glance at me twice. Still, I stood there for a few seconds too long, like a ghost wandering into the wrong scene. Then I ordered tea I didn't want, just to save face. The emails didn't stop. They grew stranger. More poetic. One referenced an inside joke Mallory and I shared from childhood about how our neighbor's corgi looked like a loaf of bread with legs. I hadn't spoken those words in decades. I never told anyone outside of her. That's when I knew. It was her. But what was the endgame? If she wanted to apologize, she could have just done that. If she wanted to come back, she knew where I lived. This wasn't reconciliation. It was something else. A tether. A game. A test of how much control she still had. It made me feel small. Controlled. Even violated. The final straw came the day I received a delivery at work. A plain brown envelope. No name. No return address. Inside was a printout of an old resume mine, from 6 years ago. Highlighted in yellow were a few lines of personal summary. Adaptable and self-directed, thrives in fast-paced environments. Reliable under pressure. At the bottom, written in shaky blue pen, "Do you even believe this anymore?" I took the envelope home and locked it in a drawer. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't report it. But I started locking my front door the minute I got home. Started drawing the blinds even during the day. I even changed my route to work. And all the while, a thought kept knocking around in the back of my mind: what if she wasn't trying to hurt me? What if she was trying to be me? Again. By the third month, I realized something had to give. I couldn't keep living in this eerie middle space, waiting for the next anonymous email, the next shadowy reminder that Mallory was still out there, still watching, still rewriting our shared history one cryptic message at a time. I decided to go to Charlottesville. The postmark on the letter she sent weeks ago had stuck with me. It was the only real thread I had. I made up a story at work about needing a long weekend to recharge. No one questioned it. If anything, I think they were relieved I was finally taking a break. It was a quiet Friday morning when I made the 2-hour drive down I-66, past the same wooded stretch as Mallory and I used to pass on family road trips. Charlottesville was smaller than I remembered. Older, more settled. Like it had stopped changing and was perfectly content staying exactly as it was. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I couldn't keep living like a question mark in my own life. I started with the GoFundMe. One of the donations had a name attached: S.J. Brewster. A quick online search brought me to a local business listing, Brewster & Cole Wellness Center, a small clinic tucked behind a strip of yoga studios and secondhand bookstores. I went in pretending to be a prospective client. The receptionist handed me a brochure and started explaining their holistic therapy options, but I was only half listening. On the wall behind her, in a collage of staff photos, was a face I hadn't seen in person in weeks. Mallory. Except here, she was listed under a different last name, Mallory Jane. No surname. Just Jane. Like some sort of reinvention, again. I thanked the receptionist and left. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, deciding what to do. Then, I walked into the bakery across the street, ordered a black coffee, and sat facing the clinic's entrance. I watched for an hour. Eventually, she came out. She was thinner, quieter in her posture, but unmistakably Mallory. Dressed in a soft gray cardigan, hair pulled back. She looked normal. Settled. Like she had finally found a place to be. And I hated how relieved I felt. That night, I went back to my hotel and started planning. Not a confrontation, not a screaming match or some dramatic showdown in the rain. Something better. Something deliberate. Something Mallory would never see coming. Back in Maryland, I contacted a friend of mine from my grad school days, Adriana, who now worked in communications and image management for nonprofits and startups. She owed me a favor. I gave her everything: screenshots of the emails, the GoFundMe, the resume with the taunting message, and a write-up of the situation with dates and details. Then, I did the one thing Mallory never expected me to do: I told my story. We crafted a professional post, a personal essay for LinkedIn. Just the right mix of vulnerability, reflection, and quiet power. I framed it as a lesson in boundaries, resilience, and the silent cost of being the stable one in a family dynamic. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. The post took off. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Messages from people who'd been through similar sibling betrayals, or who had quietly suffered from the weight of always being the one who held things together. The story resonated. I got invited to speak on a podcast about burnout and emotional labor. Then a webinar for women in leadership roles. The HR team at my job sent around my essay in a department-wide newsletter. Suddenly, I was the one being seen. A month later, I got a message from an unfamiliar number. One sentence: "You weaponized the one thing I thought I had left." No name. But I knew. I didn't reply. Because here's the thing, I didn't take anything from Mallory. I didn't smear her name or destroy her life. I didn't out her to her new workplace or hamperage her second chance. What I did was reclaim my own narrative. She spent weeks impersonating me, slipping into my identity like a mask. She tried to inhabit my world, my job, my name, my dignity. She believed she could take what I had simply by wearing it. So I showed her what being me actually meant. Stability isn't flashy. Reliability doesn't get applause. But when someone tries to steal your quiet, earned life and thinks they can wear it like a costume, the best revenge isn't rage. It's showing them they never really understood what they were reaching for. The silence stretched on after that. The emails stopped. No more anonymous letters. No more taunts. I never heard from her again, not directly. But every once in a while, I'll get a connection request from someone in Charlottesville. A clinic assistant. A counselor in training. People who work in the world she's trying to build for herself. I accept them. Not out of pettiness. Not to spy. But because, if she ever does see my face pop up in their networks, she'll know, I'm still here. Still standing. Still me. And I didn't need to become her to do it.